She had never imagined that a simple blind date could turn into one of the most embarrassing moments of her life. Covered from head to toe in mud, her clothes ruined and hair sticking in every direction, she hesitated at the entrance of the little cafe, unsure if she should just turn around and run. Everyone around seemed to notice, and her heart pounded like a drum. She thought this would be the end of her chances at love or even basic human kindness. Across the room, the single dad she was supposed to meet was waiting. Tall, kind-faced, and clearly used to handling life's surprises with patience, he looked up as she stumbled in. His eyes widened for just a moment, but what he said next didn't match the chaos she felt inside. It wasn't laughter or a judgmental comment. It was something that stopped her in her tracks, leaving her stunned and unsure how to respond. Little did she know, this awkward, muddy moment was about to change both of their lives in ways neither expected. She had come expecting discomfort and maybe even rejection, but what happened next would defy every assumption she had about first impressions. And just when she thought she might escape unnoticed, she took a deep breath, trying to calm the racing thoughts in her head. Just hours earlier, she had been rushing through a muddy park, her bag snagged on a branch, trying to rescue a lost puppy she couldn't leave behind. By the time she reached the cafe, she looked nothing like the careful, put-together person she usually presented to the world. Every step toward the table felt heavier, as if the mud on her shoes was a weight of embarrassment she couldn't shake. The single dad watched silently as she approached, a faint smile tugging at the corners of his lips. There was something in his calm presence that made her hesitate less, even though her mind screamed that this was a disaster. He seemed different from anyone she had ever met, someone who could see past appearances, or maybe he just had a way of making people feel like they belonged, no matter the circumstances. As she reached the table, she noticed a framed photo on his desk, a little girl with bright eyes and a mischievous grin. She wondered if he was used to surprises, life throwing chaos his way, just like her muddy entrance. And in that brief glance, she sensed that this blind date might be more than just awkward small talk, it could be the start of something neither of them expected. But before she could even speak, he said something that made her freeze again. He leaned back slightly in his chair, studying her with a look that was equal parts curiosity and concern. "Rough day?" he asked, his voice calm but carrying a warmth that made her cheeks burn even more. She opened her mouth to explain, then hesitated, unsure if she should confess the full story, the puppy, the mud, the chaos of her life that seemed to follow her everywhere. As she fumbled for words, she noticed other patrons sneaking glances, their whispers brushing against her like a cold wind. The cafe, once a safe place, now felt like a spotlighted stage. She could feel the judgment pressing down, and a part of her wondered if this blind date was already doomed. But then she caught the way his eyes softened when he glanced toward the mess she was, mud, torn bag, and all. Meanwhile, in the background, a small subplot began to unfold. The barista, who had watched her stumble in, exchanged a knowing smile with the single dad. Clearly, he was no stranger to unexpected situations, maybe even challenges that life threw his way as a parent. That little detail made her pause. Maybe this wasn't just about first impressions, she thought. Maybe it was about understanding, patience, and seeing beyond the surface. And just as she gathered the courage to speak, her phone buzzed, pulling her attention for a moment. The message she saw made her heart skip, and suddenly, the blind date, the mud, the cafe, and even the little girl in the photo felt like pieces of a puzzle whose full picture she wasn't ready to see yet. Her hands trembled as she slipped her phone back into her bag, the message replaying in her mind over and over. It wasn't just a random text, it was from someone who could change everything about the evening, someone connected to her past she hadn't expected to see tonight. She glanced up, catching the single dad watching her intently, his calm demeanor making the panic inside her even more confusing. The cafe felt smaller all of a sudden. Every noise, the clinking of cups, the low murmur of conversations seemed amplified, like the world had narrowed to this single moment. She wanted to explain, to run, or maybe just hide under the table, but something in his steady gaze held her in place. There was no judgment, only a quiet patience that made her question why she had felt so embarrassed just moments ago. Meanwhile, the little girl in the photograph seemed to echo silently through the room, a reminder that the single dad's life wasn't just about him, it was about responsibility, about facing the unexpected, and perhaps about learning to trust. Outside the cafe, rain began to patter against the windows, matching the rhythm of her racing heart. Then, just as she opened her mouth to speak, the door burst open, letting in a gust of wind, and with it, someone from her past, someone who threatened to turn the evening upside down. The single dad's expression shifted slightly, a flicker of recognition in his eyes, and suddenly the blind date was no longer just awkward or messy, it was about to become completely unpredictable. The sudden gust of wind rattled the cafe windows, and her heart skipped as she saw the figure stepping inside. It wasn't just a stranger, it was someone she hadn't expected to see, someone who carried a weight from her past she thought she had left behind. Her stomach twisted with anxiety, and for the first time all evening, she couldn't tell whether she should run or confront the situation head on.